All right, so we're going to start off with this. And basically speaking, this is in regards to the ministerial session on the future of data governance in Asia. And basically speaking, operationalization of quote unquote data free flow with trust, which is DFFT, and it was held. Now, is this recent? You better believe it's recent. Published on February 7th, 2024. Oh, how about that? We haven't talked about data free flow with trust in a while, but doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it's going away. And if anything, why point it out tonight? Well, I'm glad you guys are here because it's not a nothing burger. So for one, look at what it says, February 3rd, just not that long ago, right? Like, what is today? The 9th, I believe? Yeah, the 9th. So pretty recent. Minister Taro Kono hosted the ministerial session on the future of data governance in Asia and operationalization. I can't even talk tonight. I said it earlier. Of data free flow with trust in Singapore. It was co-chaired by Mrs. Josephine Teo, Minister of Communications and Information. Now think about that for a second. Communications, information. Yeah, you know where we're going with this. And second Minister of Home Affairs of Singapore. In addition to this, to Singapore, the meeting was attended by relevant ministers of all these particular countries, right? Brunei, Cambodia, Philippines, et cetera, et cetera. Getting more down into this, they had a session overview. I want to point some of these key things out to you. This session included discussions on the progress of data-free flow with trust. You guys know me. I've covered the whole thing with DFFT for quite a bit. I think even Icy Amphibian talked about it quite a bit. Shout out to our brother Icy. You should be following him on X if you haven't been doing it already. He's in attendance. I'm sure you appreciate it. So here's the key thing. The progress of all this, the future collaborations in regards to DFFT, but specifically Japan and, of course, the Asian countries, sectors of the world, and the developments of what's going on with this. I did point out a while back that Taro Kono, for instance, he went to Europe, the European Union. He met with Margaret Vestager. You can look this up yourself. And he kind of like pitched the whole idea of the significance of this whole topic of data free flow with trust. And then she was really impressed with it. And then he went to other European Union member, states, if you will. I think Luxembourg, a few other countries and so on. And they were like all bought in. And as we know a while back, this whole topic of DFFT has basically been kind of like, like a blueprint, especially for the United States moving forward. But they don't really call it DFFT. But if anything, it's like a template. Getting back to the topic at hand, Minister Kono emphasized that, quote, this session will be an opportunity for Japan and Asian countries to kickstart future collaborations on what, guys? Cross-border data flows, and refer to the establishment of an institutional arrangement partnership, which is referred to as an IAP under the OECD, right? No, not OCD, highlighting the advancement of future cooperation. Now, during this specific session, there was participating countries that introduced their own data protection regulations and responses to, of course, global issues. But what really shines here, from my key takeaway, of course, is, Taro Kono, specifically Japan, right? But what about taking on all these things in regards to global issues, right? Positive opinions were expressed, including gratitude for Japan's leadership in DFFT, and never forget that, right? That is huge. They're leading the charge when it comes to embracing these technologies. And of course, there was remarks on the importance of data governance. Again, think about that key word I was mentioning earlier. Governance, data governance. How about data democratization? You know where we're going with this. The theme of the session was to promote cooperation between Japan and Asian countries, and the meaningful discussions took place in various initiatives, of course, presented by each country. Now, I want to get to this part about Japan, the Asian countries, and working together on concrete, practical projects linking Japan's digital ecosystems. And think about that for a second. Does that not sound juicy already? With those of Asian countries to expand these efforts globally. So when we talk about the whole concept of mass adoption, understand the greater, broader picture of things. This is the pathway forward, in my opinion. You have the government involved, literally, Taro Kono, right? Because we know his position. He's going to get it done. And if anything, what's going to involve Jasmy in that regard? Well, we already understand their keys to the government already, and how huge of an impact that can be. Going more down into this, we know about some of the ones that we just mentioned in regards to Brunei, but it was very impressive even in regards to Brunei. Japan's digital transformation initiatives discuss progress of DFFT, IAP, along with the cooperation of these specific countries, the government's digitalization under international data governance. So here's one of the key takeaways I want to bring to you guys real quick before we show you more. You know, I always talk about quant, right? You could probably get tired of it at some point, maybe. Some of you guys don't. I always talk about standards. I always talk about working groups. Gilbert Verdian, especially when it comes to, you know, the ISO TC 307 quant network standard, and why that's so significant to have standards, especially when it comes to the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and some of these other things, because we understand that it all has to connect. But when we talk about working groups, like, you could talk about that all day long. And if anything, we might not know specifically who the members are of those working groups. But what about Japan? And what about Taro Kono? So Taro Kono, we do know who he is. And so what you were seeing before your very eyes is he's laying down the standards. And everything that's referenced in regards to those standards, if you really look at the broader picture, very well can enable Jasmy to connect it all, because they're already regulatory compliant, and because of Internet of Things, finance democracy, all of it. Now, you may think, is this really the bombshell? No, it's not. It's an outline. I'm going to get to the key thing here in a bit. So getting into this just a little bit more, there's more member countries. There's Malaysia, you know, and you see the pictures. A lot of times you guys want pictures. There's Taro Kono, the leader of Malaysia, right? And he's really busy. He's putting in the work, right? But this part, I should say real quick, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, port visit. So, you know, we talk a lot about, for instance, XDC. We have in the past, maybe not as much lately, but we will. And XDC always stands out in regards to trade. Look at this for a second. Mr. Kono visited Tuas Port, set to become the world's largest fully automated terminal upon its completion in 2040. The Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, which is the MPA, is planning to introduce an AI-enabled next-generation vessel traffic management system to manage the increasing traffic at the port. Does that not catch your attention for a second? Have you not researched Jasmy a little bit more to understand the significance about that? Because if you have, you understand that right there, especially with Jasmy, even though it's gotten all the criticism, like, oh, we don't like, you know, this V2 thing going on. Well, give me a break. If you have a V2 that represents scalability, then that does make sense. And what are they doing? They're scaling to this layer 2 solution with optimism for an AI blockchain solution. Boom. Once again, AI-enabled next-generation vessel traffic management system, increasing traffic at the port, unmanned vehicles. Think about what Jasmy's been doing with the Internet of Things, such as automated yard cranes, are operational within the port. Interesting. Wouldn't it be even more interesting and significant to make sure that all of this tracked data, right, is monitored correctly but safely? And if anything, in the form of a personal data locker, right? And then on top of that, be able to send that to the cloud, a Web3 storage solution, on which Jasmy has that connection with Polkadot for that layer 0. So it's all coming together when you look at the broader picture. I always mention these things in the past because I thought it was so significant when you look into the bigger picture of things. Take a look into this a little bit more. Let's bring you to the next page. And this is the juicy part. So you might want to sit down for this. In my opinion, this is an absolute bombshell. And that's why I decided to do a show tonight instead of go out. I was so excited. I just couldn't hide it. I know, kind of corny. But this topic that we've been mentioning, numerous videos, numerous people from the Jasmine community, IC Amphibian, myself, Jesse, KR Finance, you name it. We've been talking about Dfft, have we not? Well, here's the latest update. And if anything, I know a lot of you guys aren't fans of the World Economic Forum, and I'm not either. But I do understand that these guys are very, very well involved. And have you not been paying attention to LCX, right? They're the biggest threat to Binance. And if anything, even in my portfolio, I thought it was like I put in 14 or 1500. It wasn't. I invested 1200, and that sucker's up to 4800, might be even 5000. I forgot to look earlier when the market was at 1.8 trillion. But we understand the impact, whether you're for them or not, right, of the World Economic Forum. All right. So here's the bottom line. If you go right now, do it if you want. Do it. Go to the World Economic Forum site. There is this update. What's it say? Data free flow with trust, overcoming barriers to cross-border data flows. You download the PDF. Now, here's the thing. This was recent. This was recently posted over there, right? And it's not February, but again, stuff that flew under the radar from last month. What's it say? January 16th, 2023. And before I show you some key things from this PDF to, I'm a humble guy, but this time I'm going to brag a little bit. Before we drop some more bombs here, the movement of data across country borders is essential to the global economy. When data flows across borders, it's possible to deliver more to more people and produce more benefits for people and the planet. This briefing paper highlights the importance of such data flows and urges global leaders, think about this, because when we talk about the flip of the switch, maybe there is two main switches that we don't know about or do know about now. We talk about ISO 222 a lot, right? And the flip of the switch of that, and I feel as though that, fully implemented flip of the switch is November 2025. I've been consistent about it. But what about this? Because when you see things mentioned about global leaders in the public and private sectors to take collective action to work towards a shared understanding of them with a view of implementing data free flow with trust, and Taro Kono from Japan is that person to get that all done, and also understanding that Genki Oda, right, is part of the regulatory compliance of things, and he has what? Ties to SBI Japan. He has ties to, for instance, BitPoint, right? He has ties to, for instance, obviously Jasmy, and believe it or not, look it up for yourself. You understand how you have the plugs, you have the connects, and how it can all come together for this common goal of not just Society 5.0, but this whole concept of an umbrella concept facilitating trust-based data exchanges. And this paper is going to get more into it because it's going to show you how it's going to promote global discussions about how everyone's going to realize DFFT from the perspectives of policy and even business. So let's take you to this. And if anything, I thought it was big. I just thought it was huge when I got more into this. So here's the thing. This is from 2022. Now hear me out. But why would the World Economic Forum all of a sudden go out of their way to post this January 16th in a reference to what's mentioned here from 2022? Because I think they get it. They get that this is the pathway forward and how significant this is. Okay. So I want you to check this out. Again, references the whole thing of data free flow with trust. Again, this is a PDF. And if you want it, you go to the World Economic Forum and get the whole thing if you want to nerd it out. Talks about global data traffic outreach 230 exabytes or 230 billion gigabytes per month in 2020, and it's forecasted to be more than triple to reach up to 780 exabytes per month by 2026. We're not covering Casper tonight. We talked about how 1 zettabyte basically is like, what is it? A very high number of terabytes, right? And how That particular market, you know, Casper and IBM is leading the charge, or going to lead the charge, I should say, for 7.9 annually. Yes, annually, like 7.9 trillion annually sector, right? For AI governance. Now, we are talking about governance here. And of course, this is not Casper. But what I want to point out to you is this. Check this out for a second. Let's pull this up. So, straight from the World Economic Forum, it says digital trade has been the fastest growing area of global trade over the past decade, growing by 5.4% each year on average, contributing more to global growth than the trade in goods. One study shows that by 2023, which just passed, cross-border B2B commerce is expected to account for 2/3 of digital trade, 1.78 trillion. And I gave you guys those examples earlier in regards to trade. Now, here's the juicy part. For global businesses, recent research led by Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, which is METI, identified a range of industries and operations that involve cross-border data transfers. Ooh, because you want to know something? We did talk about data, not just data democracy, but finance democracy, especially when it comes to Jasmy. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't take that serious still. But check this out. This includes A, providers and developers of online apps. B, transfer of data to an overseas outsourcer. C, real-time data collection, and analysis from other countries via what? The Internet of Things. That is your main bombshell that I'm telling you about. So if you understand the greater picture of things, as I've always mentioned before, where are you getting your research from? Is your research based on opinions from a futter that has a stupid puppy dog face on Twitter who just yells out, and I know you guys get tired of this sometimes, Jasmy's scam? Come on, give me a break. I have yet to see any of those guys give definitive research on their claims for why Jasmy's a scam. And if it's such a scam, then look at where it's positioned to be for the future, for crying out loud. If you understand the broader picture of everything, which apparently the World Economic Forum, definitely does, then they don't want to be scammed any more than the next guy. So that key area about the Internet of Things, I thought was absolutely huge. I'll even read part D. Provision of platform services and Internet as a service. Wow, that's big in itself too, is it not? Why is that big in itself? Because remember how many times we reference when it comes to Jasmy, and not just a personal data locker, right? But for instance, a Jasmy secure PC, the software that goes on, for instance, the Vita laptops and so on. That's what, guys? That's SaaS, software as a service. So boom, those two things right there is absolutely huge. This next part, cybersecurity services. For instance, and look at this for a second, by using an IoT platform to collect and analyze, and boy, is it going to get really even that much more juicier here in a bit, to collect and analyze from the IoT platform real-time data utilities, operating conditions, operating environments, repairs, etc. for devices. So globally, the companies will be able to predict occurrences of failures and produce optimized maintenance plans based on such data. In short, activities in these areas produce essential products and services to enhance people's quality of life. Have you never been to the Jasmy's site? Because if you have, every freaking thing that's mentioned right there further solidifies Jasmy's goal, Jasmy's purpose. And they've been talking about this long before the World Economic Forum came up with this 2022 WEF Data Free Flow with Trust 2022 PDF. How do we know that? Because of the inception of Jasmy many years ago, before it even became public and available in a token offering. I almost want to just end it right here, but I won't, because we do got to talk about policy. Cross-border data policies must respond to these economic and social impacts while being mindful of the importance of securing trust. Remember the late, great Shinzo Abe? RIP Shinzo Abe. At the G20 back in 2019, and I showed you guys videos And if you're a newcomer, it's okay. You watch the old coverage. Shinzo Abe declared the launch of, quote, Osaka track on data free flow with trust. So that was always embedded, ingrained into the Japanese culture and system moving forward, about a vision of data flows in which openness and trust in data flows coexist and complement each other. And boy, oh boy, does this get better. In fact, members of the G7 countries have recognized that data free flow with trust underpins innovation, prosperity, and what? Democratic values. What about data democratization? This vision has also been carried forward in the latest G20 in Bali, where the G20 Bali leaders declared, clearly mentioning the whole thing, quote, we remain committed to further enable data free flow with trust and promote cross-border data flows. If anything, this should be your answer, finally, when it comes to the whole thing of why Jasmy recognizes the opportunity for what? For finance democracy, for cross-border payments. It's a huge industry. Now, let's jump over to this because there's a little bit more. So on the 5th page from the World Economic Forum, you're going to see some key things here as well. And that is this. So it goes on to mention this right here. Let me just jump further down. Number 3, real-time data analysis from abroad. For instance, like it says, via IoT devices, no personal data is included. Look at what it says. Growing regulations on non-personal data as a new data category such as security information emerge. They are emerging. Why do you think the World Economic Forum is even paying attention to this? Why do you think that Taro Kono is so gangbusters about this, gung-ho about it, as they would say in Japan? The point is, the categories of such security information, how they emerge, often, like look what it says, often vague in scope and prone to sudden change, but there's a case-by-case review of the processes for data localization, the rules, and how they could undermine the advantages of real-time monitoring, a basic capability of IoT. Now, to drop a few more bombs. Number 4, real-time data analysis from abroad via IoT devices. Personal data is included. Personal data is included. And Jasmy'S main utility that we all know about is a personal data locker. And they're regulatory compliant. And they got all these connections, for instance, to the government and even the regulatory, for crying out loud. Obviously, back to the whole thing at Genki Oda, that plug, that connect. Look at this. Personal data definitions extend not only to laws, but also to guidelines and administrative notices, making them difficult to implement and interpret. By providing a platform and IaaS, you're going to have requirements for cross-border transfers, which are highly complex, I can't pronounce that tonight. Necessitating, excuse me. Sometimes I read too fast and I speak too quick, and then it doesn't come out as well. Anyway, frequent customer agreements. I want to read this last part real quick. Region-specific certifications may require security-related information in addition to global rules and what standards, imposing significant cost burden. Now, region-specific certifications. Think about it. Don't overthink it. Taro Kono went to where? Region-specific locations to realize how their governance models are set up and introduce this new model and see how it can implement and benefit these specific countries. It's a beautiful thing. When we talk about standards and those global rules, I will always be consistent about this. No matter if a person just looked at my thumbnail and didn't listen to the material, the fact remains that if Jasmy wants to take it to the next level in the future after the whole thing with optimism, you do have the whole thing of standards for Japan with ISO TC 307, the Quant Network Standard. And they're the working groups specifically, again, in Japan. So that is all there. And there's so much more about the examples of cross-border data flows. And if anything, if I go more on to this and elaborate more, it's going to be like a 2 or 3 hour long thing. And it will really seem like it's like a lecture. And maybe it does feel like it's a lecture at hand right now. In conclusion, give me a second. In conclusion, I want to provide you guys some more of my own key research, not just present slides and so on and elaborate about it. So what I want to talk to you guys about real quick is basically this. As we saw in this January 16th article stating that global businesses recently researched, and brought together by Japan's Ministry of Economy, which is Taro Kono, Trade and Industry, which is METI, identified a range of industries and operations that involve, of course, cross-border data transfers. But this is all super significant, and especially when it comes to you, me, everybody else that holds Jasmy. So I want to start off with this real quick. The significance of the World Economic Forum, that article, and Jasmy's position in regards to that. The World Economic Forum article highlighting industries' reliance on cross-border payments, or I should say cross-border data transfers, don't want to misspeak there, is very, very significant for many different reasons. And I'm going to get into roughly 3 key things for you. This part is good. You want to pay attention to this. There's going to be a growing importance of data. I should say there is going to be, there already is. This reinforces the critical role of cross-border data flows and how they play in various different industries. Again, we showed you the example of trade, driving innovation and enhancing people's lives. Again, like Jasmy references all this. And if anything, they're specific about it. You ever wonder why some of this stuff is called platinum data? Like, we talk about Bitcoin being, digital gold. Should we really look at Jasmy, the Bitcoin in Japan, as being digital platinum? For real. Maybe that should be a thing that we start doing in the Jasmy community, because we want to know something that appears to be a real thing. What about the focus on data governance? This is so significant. This whole thing is going to underscore the need for effective data governance and, of course, their frameworks. And it's also going to address concerns like privacy, security, and fair competition. We know that Jasmy is in competition with some of these other ones that are out there. What's a perfect example? Well, IOTA. I held IOTA because I also feel it's a great one as part of ISO 222. I feel as though it's like, the whole concept of basically IoT with ISO 222. Why would I not want to own that, right? But there is opportunity for technology solutions, and I want you to hear me out on this as well. This in itself, what was mentioned with the World Economic Forum and this recent update from Dfft, it does very well open the door for technology companies like specifically Jasmy to provide solutions that facilitate secure and transparent data transfers while ensuring, of course, compliance. But if you already have the Bitcoin of Japan, as the saying goes, that already established that from the start, doesn't that solidify this moving forward? I think it does. Let's talk about this for a second. After everything that was presented tonight, and I know it's a lot of material, why does Jasmy stand out above all? Because there's a lot of other things we can mention out there. Well, based on the information I provided you tonight, Jasmy seems to stand out for these specific reasons. And if anything, these 3 specific reasons. By combining IoT and blockchain, Jasmy's approach to combining IoT tech for data collection with blockchain for secure and transparent data management addresses the core challenges of just that cross-border data transfers. Hence the term data free flow with what? Trust. Gilbert Verdian always talks about not only the internet of value, but the internet of trust. The focus on data democracy, which is what Jasmy is all about. Jasmy's mission, listen to this, just in case you just tuned in. Smash the like, by the way. Hopefully you really appreciate the content tonight, right? Appreciate all you guys being here tonight. Jasmy's mission aligns with the concept of data democracy, empowering individuals and organizations to control and benefit from their specific data. That example we gave you, when Taro Kono went into, I forgot what the name of that country, right, was and so on, but went to that country and they highlighted that specific thing in regards to being right there at the darn Port Authority, definitely does recognize how this whole mission aligns with empowering individuals, organizations to control and benefit from, of course, their data. All right, to the third part. And I know this is a lot tonight. There's a lot of finance democracy initiatives, and it's not just Jasmy'S initiative. Hear me out. Their recent ventures into quote unquote finance democracy suggest expanding their solutions beyond traditional industries, as in Jasmy, potentially creating a comprehensive ecosystem for data-driven initiatives. But it's not just specifically Jasmy. You understand the bigger picture now when you see Tara Kona go to all these countries. Because at the end of the day, that pitch sounds beautiful and it sounds great. But I'd be asking at the end of the day, who is the one that's going to get this done? And then boom, if anything, you could recognize, is there any ones that are already established that has this going on? Look into Jasmy. Now, some people say, well, they're not all going to pick Jasmy, and that could very well be true. But like I've always pointed out before, is it really about getting all of them? No, it's not. Is it really about all, like for instance, Quant getting all of them? No, it's not. But the whole point of it, right, is recognizing that if we even get like 1%, right, of the overall picture of things, what do you think that's going to do to your particular token? Think about it for a second. Add up the numbers, it could be absolutely massive. All right. In conclusion, moving forward, especially when it comes to Jasmy, to maintain its leading position in regards to this specific sector of the world, right? Japan, Southeast Asia, and so on, they need to develop and implement a robust data governance model. And I think, if anything, you see them starting to do that. This does include building trust with users and regulators by ensuring data privacy. That already exists. They already have that trust. If they didn't, I think Geiki Yoda wouldn't even bother to mess with Jasmy. So data privacy, security, compliance with relevant regulations. That's already checkmark. Boom, done. What about being able to demonstrate scalable and real-world applications? Successful case studies across various industries and partnerships will be key when it comes to the players who will solidify their leadership position. Very, very true. This last part, by continuously evolving and adapting to market environments and so on, Jasmy in itself, as the, has this whole thing of like this data landscape, if you will, and regulations, they're going to evolve, right? Jasmy needs to remain agile, and I think they are, and adapt its solutions accordingly. And if you're wondering, I don't know if they do that. The hell they don't. They have adapted. And how did they do it in their solutions accordingly? By keeping true to the white paper, and if anything, recognizing we can't scale, we can't truly do, this whole utility of what we want to do with the current state of, for instance, this ERC20 token. Very, very true. Hence, going to this layer 2 scaling solution on Optimism and what they're going to do with Polkadot, right, for the Web3 cloud solution. So at the end of the day, I thought this was really big, and I definitely wanted to do what? I wanted to bring it to you guys because I thought, you know what? All of this is absolutely crucial. It's all very, very significant. And if I'm a Jasmy holder, well, I'd be convinced that maybe it's time to, not financial advice, look at the broader picture of things and say to myself, did I reach my goals for Jasmy? And do I have a further understanding for the long-term vision? If your answer is yes, then at the end of the day, I can't convince you. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just trying to provide information. You can do with it as you please. None of this is financial advice, but that concludes the Jasmy coverage of the night.